A woman can't change a man because she loves him. A man will change himself because he loves her. And in reality, because he loves himself enough to also want to be better. Be better for him, be better for her, be better for the relationship. But the reality is that so many women get involved with men hoping for things to get better, hoping that this man will finally turn that corner, hoping that he will finally walk into his true potential as she sees it. But unfortunately, for many women, that does not come to pass. And instead, women get dragged, drained, and I hate to say it, but destroyed with these relationships, dealing with men who were never truly best for them. So I want you to understand you can't change them, but not just understand you can't change them, understand why you can't change them. Why this is not the approach you need to be taking with any man. Number one is because he sees nothing wrong with who he is and what he does. Listen, let me say this real quick. One, there's another saying that they say, men marry hoping women will stay the same, and women marry hoping the man will change. All right. And I think that there's this, some could argue, there's this innate thing in women that, again, wants to see something grow and blossom into what they believe it can be. They're looking ahead to the future and the potential of it all. All right. And you can recognize the issues and the shortcomings of this man. But the unfortunate reality is that he does not see it the same way. He may not see it the same way, and I feel in my spirit I have to say this. He may not see it the same way because his mama won't let him. and I'm sorry, but here's the thing. There are mothers out there, and I got to say this too, you might be one of them, where they coddle their sons to the point of the son not being able to see any wrong in who they are. They allow their sons to believe that they are the greatest thing walking this earth, and if anyone takes issue with anything about them, that person is the problem, not their son. And it allows these men, or what may be more appropriate, young boys or old boys, I guess would be a better thing to say, to really walk with this blindness, this lack of awareness of how they have not developed as individuals, how they have not developed as men. And so you have this mother, and it may go beyond the mother. He may just have a community around him that does not hold him accountable for his shortcomings. And now here you come along saying, well, you need to do this better, and you need to be like this, and I think you should do this. And even though, yes, your intention may be good, it falls on deaf ears and it goes nowhere. Listen, no one can change if they don't see the need for it. He has to be able to connect with what you're seeing is a problem. So even if you believe, because I do think that the right woman can inspire a man and elevate a man. Hell, just some women just have that ability in general, but I definitely think when a man's really into a woman, it's even more so. But the point is, it is possible for you to give him a nice push, but I would argue that if you see that a push even needs to be given, that is done within the process of friendship. If you can even handle friendship, if you can keep the boundaries the way they need to be in that dynamic, okay, cool. Because it's risky business for most people, so I don't want to suggest it as what you should be jumping straight to. But if you feel led that you can be something impactful for him, all right, do it as a friend. But the minute you cross that line of getting romantic, of giving girlfriend benefits, while trying to change a man who, again, may not even see the error in his ways, it ain't going to work. It simply won't work. The second reason why you cannot change a man is because the potential you see in him is not the reality he believes for himself. So again, it's one thing to not understand what's wrong that even needs to be fixed and improved upon, all right? That's one issue. But then there's the issue of the greater version of him that you believe he can be. And it may not even be like, well, he's a bad communicator, so I think he can be better communicator later. No, it might be, okay, well, he works at this regular job. He seems very complacent, but I know he's a great man and he has great skills, and I believe he could be doing way better than this and make way more money and achieving all kinds of things, right? And that's the potential you see in this man. But for him, his reality is, I'm okay at this level. I'm okay being complacent. I'm okay not making more money. I'm okay not being ambitious. I'm comfortable. And because I'm comfortable, if you try to drag me to that higher place, I will resent you. I will start to be angry with you. I will start to act out in other ways. All right? Because I will now start to resist the pull, the direction you're trying to drag me in. And that's why you see so much conflict with women and men in this dynamic, and some situations where, okay, maybe he allowed you to pull him to that higher level, but now he's not happy there because it does not connect with his reality. His reality of his potential is he's already there, that he's already good, that there's not another level for him to achieve. Some people don't care for that. Some people just don't have it in them. And so you've got to be real with yourself. You've got to be able to embrace a man with the understanding that if he does not change, I will still be happy with this man. And what I mean by that is the man he is right now has to be good enough to where if nothing changes, you could still be happy. But if your happiness, your long-term happiness, if your long-term ability to be with this man is dependent upon him evolving, him changing, then there is no point to enter into that relationship. You are setting yourself up for disaster every single time, and you've got to check yourself. Because it's you that's holding on to that perception. It's not even, in this specific scenario, it's not even him saying, well, I'm going to be better, just, you're going to see, I'm working to, no. I've seen a lot of scenarios where the dude's just like, hey, I don't understand what the problem is, all right? And you keep stressing how you want to see him do better. Don't play yourself. Do not play yourself. All right, so now we are on to the third reason why you can't change him. And that's because he was never that serious about you to begin with. Listen, and I know that can be a hard pill for many of you to swallow. And again, anything I say to you is with love. It's not to hurt you or to make you feel some kind of way, but it is to wake you up to certain realities. And the unfortunate truth is that a lot of the men you're coming across, though they may be great guys, they may be nice guys, they may have a genuine nature to them, we're never trying to be serious with you in this relationship. And because they're not trying to be serious, that's not their intent, then their desire to become someone better for you is not there. And that's what we're talking about when we say change, because we're not talking about them changing to be something worse. We're talking about them changing to be something better. And for them, we got to understand that change requires effort, requires work. And who the hell wants to put in work for something that they don't take that serious, And so if he just came here to have a good time, and not for a long time, then, he's not looking to have to jump through any additional hurdles. He's not looking to have to take on any additional burdens or anything like that. That just was not a part of his plan. And so you've got to recognize when someone is not here with serious intent, when someone is not looking to build something greater with you. Because if they're not, then there's nothing. And listen, again, even in those scenarios where the man is not serious, right? Could change occur? I feel the need to mention this because it just kind of was hitting me. Like, I don't want to ever say that change has never occurred with a man who wasn't serious about a woman. Maybe you opened his eyes to some things and stuff like that, and he actually did become better while with you, and better in a way that he's happy about his better. The problem is, if he did not have serious intent to begin with, then his better will be given to someone else. He will take his better that you instilled in him, that you encouraged him, that you may have even damn near constructed for him with your hands and your blood, sweat, and tears, and then go and reward another woman with it. And many of you have seen it. Some of you have already lived it. And that's why it becomes so important where, again, you've got to recognize, what is this man's real intent? What kind of investment should I allow myself to be making in this individual? And one of the clear ways to know if he's serious is, and this is just one of the ways, is how is he pouring into you? Because again, in a lot of these scenarios where the woman is trying to change the man, if you observe it long enough, what you will notice is a dynamic where she is constantly pouring into him, but him pouring into her, not so much. It ain't really going down like that. She may enjoy that she has a man in her life. He may do a couple little things here and there, but him taking initiative and pouring into her the way that she pours into him, that's typically not what's going on in these relationships, these types of relationships, or situationships, to be more accurate for some people. So you got to recognize, are we having a mutually beneficial situation here? Are we pouring into each other? If yes, then okay, cool. You can proceed with inspiring him to be better and investing in him in that way. But once you can take a step back and realize this is pretty one-sided, then it needs to stop. And you have to understand that no, even the change that may occur will simply be taken and given to someone else. And you will only feel cheated, used, and become more damaged in the process if you try to hold on to that. All right, so now we're going to get to the next point, but real quick, get your copy of The Man God Has For You. Like, really, seriously, get your copy. This is going to help you more than you realize. It's already helped so many thousands of women. There's thousands of reviews on Amazon. It is a best-selling book. You can click the link in the description or in the comment section, or go to www.themangodhasforyou.com. So the next reason why you can't change him is because he is not ready or willing to face the pain. So what do I mean by that? For some of the men that you will encounter or have encountered, their struggle to evolve and change is due to a lack of healing, is due to hurt and disappointment they have faced in the past, and they've allowed this to linger, and it is having a very negative impact on who they are and how they show up in this relationship or in this situation. And so now you asking them to change isn't simply about correcting a behavior. It isn't simply, okay, well, just stop doing this and do this instead. It's going to require them going deeper within themselves and facing a hurt they've been running away from for a long time. And I have to say this, he may even love you. He may genuinely care about you. He may genuinely want to be better for you. But the fear of facing that pain is so strong, it is crippling and paralyzing him. Now, please understand, I don't say that for him to have sympathy in the way that says you should deal with it and just stick with him. No, if he is unwilling to take the necessary steps and do the necessary work, then you cannot remain there, because you remaining there will only shoot yourself in the foot and contribute more to why he has no reason to face the issues. Again, if he's being rewarded by your presence in this relationship, why he's not going to want to have to then deal with something that he feels like he can just keep pushing to the side and y'all just keep moving forward. So I don't want you to sympathize in that way, but I do want you to understand that an individual's struggle to face the pain, and for some of you, you are that individual as a woman. But we won't dwell on that because this video was about changing the man. His struggle to face that is not always about, oh, well, he doesn't care about me, he doesn't love me. This is hard. This is really hard. And it's scary for a lot of people. And this is why you have to understand the choice will never be yours as far as him changing. It has to be his. He has to get to a point where the fear of losing you, or the fear of not having you, or the fear of not living the life that he deserves is stronger than the fear of facing that pain. And unfortunately for some people, it never happens. Some people go to the grave never facing their issues, never healing. And this is why it's so important to understand. We can't just think, well, let me just stay here and it's just going to happen. It's going to happen. No, they've got to be willing. They've got to be willing to make that choice. So just understand that, yes, that is a real situation for a lot of people. And for a lot of men, especially since a lot of men have not been taught how to face their emotions to begin with, have not taught how to process things properly. And so it makes it very difficult. But again, they have to do it. And my prayer is that everybody, man and woman, gets the healing they need. But this is a huge obstacle to people evolving and changing as necessary. All right, so that brings me to number 5. And the 5th reason why you can't change them is because you haven't healed yourself. So let me give you a quick story. There was one time I was speaking on tour. I can't remember which city it was. I want to say Dallas. But either way, on my speaking tours, I'll do this whole long, talk about different topics. And then at the end, we do a Q&A. So we did the Q&A, and it's like a picture a hotel conference room, everybody in the middle, whatever, all these rows. And then we have these rows at the end on the side of people just waiting to come up to the microphone and ask their questions. So the one lady finally gets the microphone, and her question is, I've been with my guy and we're going through some stuff, and he really has some issues he needs to heal from. How do you get somebody to heal? How do you get them to be willing to do what they need to do and address those issues? And the first question that came out of my mind was, well, let me ask you something. Have you healed? And she said, no. And I said, well, help me understand. How do you think you can encourage and inspire someone to heal, to do something to do something that's not easy, such as healing, when you haven't done it yourself? That's hard to pull off, all right? For multiple reasons. Because one, again, what example are you setting? If you want anyone to heal in your life, I don't care if it's a man, if it's your mother, your father, your kids, whoever, the best thing you could do is heal yourself first, all right? Set the example first. The inspiration that people get from seeing someone else free themselves from all that hurt and pain, seeing the evolution of who you are right in front of their face, this is more powerful than you saying to them, you got issues, you need to heal, you need to go to a counselor. Show them by doing it for you, all right? But then the other reason why healing yourself first is so important is because whether we realize it or not, when we have not healed and we're dealing with someone who's not healed. So if we're keeping it real here, we have two broken people, all right? I got 4 fingers up, but it's 2 broken people, okay? What we have is a toxic environment, number 1, when you have 2 broken people. And what you have is an individual. So let's just say in this situation, you have this woman, she's trying to get her man to heal. Let's just say he decides to go to counseling. But when you have not healed and you have your triggers and he comes home and he talks about his counseling, or maybe he does something in the process of him trying to figure things out, you will not handle things properly. You will not be effective in the way that you walk with him in his journey. And when I say walk with him, be involved in it, being around, because you're not really walking with him because you're not even doing the healing yourself. But you just being there, watching it, you're very likely to push some buttons. You're very likely to undermine some of his efforts. The same way it happens on the flip side. You have women who go to healing or go to a counselor, try to get help, coming home to a man who's not doing it himself, never did it himself, and all he's doing is poking the bear. All he's doing is making you slip up even more. All he's doing is setting you back. So you're going to do the same thing. So if you want a man to change or to heal, because again, in a lot of cases, the change will require some healing. then you got to do it yourself. But even if it's not healing, even if it is just change, let's just say there's a couple of changes that need to be made, that it ain't even that deep as far as they need healing. All right, are you showing a willingness to change? Are you showing a willingness to correct any behaviors? Are you opening yourself up to whatever criticisms they may have of things that you need to improve upon? You want people to be open to what you got to say, you got to be open to what they got to say. You want them to take your constructive criticism, you got to do the same thing. Again, set the example. And when you do that, you have a higher chance of it. But when you don't, then know that pretty much you're not going to be able to change him. All right, so now we're at the sixth reason why you cannot change him is because you're simply with the wrong man. Listen, I showed you the book, The Man God Has for You. And the reality is that many of you, I said the other day, I posted it, how too many people are in the wrong relationship. Too many people are married to the wrong person. There's a lot of mismatched relationships, so to speak. And so you could do all the right things, but if you're doing it with the wrong person, it still will not produce the right relationship. You know what I'm saying? Like you can work as hard as you want. You can try everything. And I'm not saying don't try, because I do feel like for some people, for some of you to truly release yourself from a relationship, you may need to put forth a certain amount of effort to be able to say, I did my best. I did what I could. All right. So I'm not knocking trying in some capacity, but there's got to be a line drawn, and there's got to be an understanding of, listen, once you come to the realization, if you haven't already, and to be completely honest with you, this being a video for women, you being a woman watching this, you already know. You already know he ain't for you. Or you already know when he is not for you. All right. And unfortunately, so many women, such as yourself, have looked past your intuition, have looked past what you felt spiritually you were being told, and try to make it work. Try to rationalize past these things. Maybe he's a good guy. Maybe you're afraid to be alone. Whatever the case may be. But you knew. You knew. But regardless, whether you know or not, you got to understand that if he's not right for you, he's just not right for you. And all this extra stuff won't make a difference, and when you understand going into it, that just because you do X, Y, Z doesn't magically mean this is going to be the right guy in the right relationship, then you can walk away without the lingering damage of more disappointment. And what I mean by that is, I see so many women who give up on love, give up on relationships, because they'll say, well, I did this and I did that. I tried this. I did all these things for this man. I poured so much into this and nothing worked. And so to them, they process it as, there's nothing I can do to win. There's nothing that works with these men. There's nothing that works that will give me the love that I desire. But no, the problem wasn't what you were trying. The problem was who you were trying it with. And when you can understand and recognize the difference between right actions and wrong person, then when it fails with that individual, you will, instead of saying this will never work with anyone, you will say, well, no, this did not work with him. This was more evidence that he was not the guy, that I have to let him go. But I can take these proper, effective behaviors and apply it to a future relationship to give myself a better chance at success. Or I can know that if I find the right man, that if I'm patient to receive the one who's for me, that these things will be effective, that they will work, and that my efforts will not be in vain. So understand that difference, you know what I'm saying? And be willing to let go when he's just not the guy. Now we're at the seventh reason why you cannot change him, and that's because you are not God. Now listen, I know you're not God, but some of y'all be trying to act like you're God, but thinking that you can control somebody else. Now, if you're not a believer, this clearly won't apply to you. But for those of you who are believers, I have to give this example, or this whatever you want to call it. Anyways, there's a lot of people will say, well, God can change this person's heart. And I'll see, and I've coached many women who are married, or couples, even men, who say, well, I'm going to pray for God to change their heart, and God could change their heart like Moses changed Pharaoh's heart. Now, if you're not familiar with the story of Moses and Pharaoh, Pharaoh was the man who, and I'm not even the greatest at telling this story, all right? But he had locked away the peoples. Moses had to go to him. That's what set the people free. That's when they walked the 40 years in the wilderness. All right, you just go look it up. I'm not going to go through the whole story right now. But the reason why I'm bringing that up is because when people love to use that story as God changing Pharaoh's heart, I intervene by saying, listen, I don't believe God changed his heart as in God made him do something. God told Moses what to do to push Pharaoh's buttons that would lead to certain reactions that would then conclude with the people being set free. So he knew how to guide Moses in handling the situation to get a certain result. But he did not make Pharaoh do anything because that would violate free will. So I'm saying this because when you are trying to change a man or change any person and have this belief that either I can do it or I'm just going to pray and God's going to do it, you got to understand that that individual still has a choice in life. They still have free will. And if you want to, if you're hoping for change, then the questions or the prayers should not be, God, change them, all right? God, change their heart. It should be, what do you want me to do in this situation? How do you want me to proceed? Now, here's the beautiful thing. He may tell you to proceed your behind out the situation. Because again, it may be in taking a step back and praying that God shows you, your spirit shows you that, yo, you don't belong here. You don't need to be trying to change nobody. Go. Or it could be you're only here to plant a seed. That's another problem I see with people in general, people of faith, is sometimes they want to be the one that says, I changed them, I saved them, I did this. And it's like, yo, chill out. You might just be here to plant a seed. And if you overstep your role in this situation, you could derail the situation. Like, yes, that man may be destined for change, but he may not change for you or while with you because he's not for you. He's for someone else, and there may be another man that's coming up that is for you, that you will have your amazing relationship with. But if you get caught up trying to fix and change him, you will miss out on who is for you. So you got to just ask God, okay, what do I do here? How do you want me to proceed and handle this? And then give the rest to God, because you're not him. And whatever's going to be will be. But just know that with God, you're going to be good. And know that at the end of the day, you will be better served focusing on your change than anyone else's. Let your evolution be your focus. Let you strive for being the better version of yourself and living the higher quality of life you deserve. Do not waste your energy focused on changing anyone else when you haven't poured that energy into yourself first. The next time love visits you, I pray that it stays. Because unfortunately, many of you have experienced a love or what you may have felt was love, and it kind of fell apart. Or you may have felt like you grew apart from this individual. And some of you are going through that as we speak, questioning if you should remain in a relationship or continue to be dating this individual when you feel like things just aren't what they once were. And so it brings up the question, have you two grown apart? Have you reached that point where you're just no longer a good fit for each other? And I want to help bring clarity to when this is the case, when this does apply to a situation that you're dealing with. Now, even if you're not dating or in a relationship with anybody right now, you want to be mindful of these things because, there's a lot of people who allow a situation or relationship to drag on way longer than it should in hopes of things changing that never had a chance to change because they were just dealing with the wrong person, the wrong man who does not fit you. Whether it seemed like they once did, it's just not there anymore. And we've got to be able to accept that. But let's help make that clearer for you and anyone that watches this video. Before we begin, I want to say, one of the, I guess we could say, unfortunate realities in life is that the more we pour into someone and give to a situation, the more likely we become attached to it. And sometimes we aren't getting what we feel we deserve or desired from that investment that we made. And we hold on hoping to get back what we feel we should be getting back due to everything that we've done up to this point. But unfortunately, that creates this very negative cycle of letting things drag on in our life longer than they should, allowing people to remain and continuously have an impact that isn't healthy, that isn't positive. And what makes it more difficult for us to let go is the fact that we have deeper unresolved issues and hurts that have contributed to the unhealthy attachments we develop with people as adults and in these different relationships. And that's why I'm such a huge advocate of getting therapy, even if you don't think you need it, because you may not realize what you have yet to resolve and release so that you can be set free from the potential of any negative cycle that you could find yourself in, or maybe you are in. And that's why I'm so thankful to BetterHelp for sponsoring today's video. Because everyone knows that therapy is great for solving problems, but it turns out therapy has some issues of its own, like finding the right therapist, fitting into their schedule, getting to their office, and of course, the cost. BetterHelp was created to help solve those problems because you deserve to focus on yourself and make your well-being a priority. BetterHelp is convenient, built around your schedule, and surprisingly affordable. Start by filling out a brief questionnaire to be matched with a licensed therapist who fits your needs and preferences, and connect with them by phone, video, chat, or message. If you're not comfortable with your therapist, you can change at any point at no additional cost. Online therapy has also been proven to be as effective as in-person therapy. So it's a great solution for people who want to start therapy with a little less hassle. There's a reason 4 million people have turned to BetterHelp for mental health support. Visit betterhelp.com/Stephan Speaks or choose Stephan Speaks during sign up to receive 10% off your first month of therapy. And one of the first signs that you two have grown apart is when he or being around him constantly drains you, okay? So I always say a relationship is supposed to make you better, not worse. It's supposed to help you deal with the stress life brings, not add unnecessary stress to your life. Unfortunately, I feel that people have become so accustomed to unhealthy relationships, to stressful relationships, to this whole idea of, well, everybody goes through stuff, which, yeah, I think you're with someone long enough, you're probably going to have some bumps in the road and you got to learn to overcome that. Absolutely. But not everyone is experiencing a relationship that is constantly draining and taking from them and leaving them depleted. And that's a huge problem. Now, let me be clear. There's a difference between going through a season of this versus this is just how it's been. And one of the ways you can differentiate that is, all right, it's one thing if, let's just say, you're with a man and he lost his job. And during this rough transition of him losing his job, but he is actively looking, trying to do something about it, you know, he may be a little bit more depressed, he may be struggling a little bit, and the burden of both his energy, his attitude towards life right now, and the reality that you may be carrying things more financially could leave you feeling drained, right? However, if you know you can reference the fact that up to this point, he's been a good man, he's poured into you, he's done his part, and we're just at a rough patch, okay, so be it, right? Because there's an end here. There's the rainbow after the storm, so to speak. It's coming. We just got to get him back on his feet, drop. And of course, I would want that man to at least work on still being a positive presence even during this time so that it doesn't add unnecessary burden to his partner in ways that he can't control, right? But then you have other situations where it's not about a specific thing going on. It's about that person. It's about the overall health of the relationship. It's constant bickering and arguing. It's abuse, verbal, physical, you name it. It is all kinds of things, factors that have been at play for a while now. All right. And especially, this is especially true when do you really even have a long season to point to where things were great? Because that's the thing. I think what people have to be mindful of when really understanding if you're dealing with the right person or not is there a long stretch where things were really great? Because if you can't point to that, right? And I'm saying in regards to the person, there's so many nuances to a relationship, which is why sometimes some of you may feel like I over-explain or I say a lot because there's a lot of little different angles to consider, right? And so the reason why I kind of stop myself there is because I've seen two people who have a connection and they have yet to have a stretch of everything being great, not because the two people don't fit together, but because they keep having outside interference. All right. And it's the outside interference causing the stress, not the actual time they spend with each other. That's different than when it's that person, that same person you're trying to be with is the same person draining you. Okay. Leaving you feeling depleted and defeated. And again, going back to my point of you don't even have a stretch of things were healthy and great to point to. Well, that's more proof to me that this is just not the good fit. And I would argue this isn't even about growing apart or outgrowing him. This is just he ain't the one for you. Plain and simple. And you may have just had enough distractions or you had unhealthy attachment strong enough in the beginning to help you overlook a lot of the issues and try to find joy in the moments. But now you've reached a point in the relationship where you just can't sustain this, or at least you are struggling to. And again, you're feeling drained by him. That is not good. That is not healthy. Now, of course, and I'm going to repeat this many times throughout this video, I always want to encourage you to address things before you just up and go. All right, so here's another huge sign you have outgrown him, and it may be time to move on, is that your values are now conflicting. So a lot of people enter in relationships overlooking red flags and never discussing very foundational, fundamental principles that can determine the ultimate success of this relationship. And so there are people sometimes who they meet each other and they're having so much fun and they don't get to talking about deep values and things of that nature. Or sometimes people meet at a time in their life where individuals haven't fully come into full awareness or acceptance of what their actual values are. They haven't given it much thought. They haven't figured those parts about themselves out yet. But they get with this person, they're enjoying it, everything seems great, all right, they move forward. But at some point in the relationship, because I always say, listen, no one can suppress their true self forever. The true self will come out. Whether you know who your true self is or not, it's gonna make an appearance at some point in a relationship, okay? If you're with someone long enough. And when that true self comes, and it comes in the form of what your values now are, what you've accepted them to be, it is very possible that now you find you two are not on the same page. And this can create major conflicts. One of those examples that come to mind that I've seen happen many times is spiritual belief conflicts, all right? Where maybe the two people got together at first and let's say they both believed in God, but neither really had this passionate stance on a specific spiritual belief, and it was just more like, hey, it's all good, whatever it is. Very passive with their belief system. But then, let's say you as the woman get to a place where now your walk with God becomes a huge priority and very important to you. Or it could happen the other way around, but let's just stick with you. And now there's certain principles you want to uphold or implement in your relationship. And this man's like, I didn't sign up for this. Where's all this coming from? I'm not with all this. All right. So you might be over here saying, well, let's pray about things. And he's like, I don't even believe in prayer. You know what I'm saying? And to him, he may resent you if you keep pushing him to do it, because it's like, I never told you I was cool with that. I never told you that's what I believed in. So why am I now being pressured and pushed? Now, I'm not mentioning him taking issue with you as a reason to not move forward with what you need to do in your spiritual walk. I'm just speaking to the reality of the conflict that can occur. Now, I do think that if you've made a switch like that, because there's various different values that later happen in a relationship. I'm going to mention one, and I'm going to come back to this spiritual one in a second. Even, let's say, having kids. I've seen people where they started off and maybe both parties was like, yo, we don't want kids. And that's why they felt like they could be together. And then one of the parties is like, you know what? I've changed my mind. I want kids. I saw somebody with some babies the other day. They looked so cute. It hit a part of my heart. And now I need some kids. And your partner's like, I told you I'm not with that. And I'm not willing to even compromise on that. It's a no for me. That's an example of you guys have outgrown each other. And you've just gone to different places in life. It doesn't make either person bad or anything like that. It's just the reality of how things evolve sometimes. And when we are not, again, doing a deep enough search within ourselves to understand who we are before we start entertaining people we want to spend our lives with. But going back to the spiritual piece, I do want to say that I do think it's important that if you find yourself in a relationship, dating someone, and you've developed a new spiritual principle or belief, you don't want to come across like pressuring or overbearing or speaking down to someone because they're not stepping up to where you want them to be, when that's not what they were ever on. Like, everyone's on a different timing when it comes to how they evolve spiritually, all right? Some people will never get there for various reasons. For some, they'll get there, but it's going to take time. Now, does that mean you're automatically supposed to just deal with it and wait? No, you got to talk to God about that. But it does speak to the fact that we cannot expect everyone to be on the same timeline as us and move as quickly as we have in now embracing certain things. It's unfair, but it doesn't change the fact that maybe we've now reached a point that we have to go in different directions. And with all these things I will mention, sometimes going in a different direction does not mean we cannot come back together later. It just means that things cannot work and move forward as they are. So if you know you're on a certain path and they're spiritually, and they're still engaging with things that completely conflict with you, right? Trying to force that forward, you're probably going to run into a bigger problem, okay? And you have to be mindful of, will this derail me from what I'm trying to, the direction I know I need to move in for myself, right? So in that case, yeah, we need to go apart. But is it possible that in going apart, going in your own different directions, that he may now get to a place where he believes what you believe, or you two are now seeing eye to eye on the same page? That can happen. I've seen it happen. But we just can't do it with that expectation. We just have to focus on what is it that you need to be doing. But again, there's so many different examples of values changing and people now wanting different things. And it just becomes very difficult because when you've invested so much time and energy, you don't want to let go that easily. You don't want to accept that maybe we are just growing apart and we're no longer a good fit. But trying to force things along will only make things worse, not better. All right, so here's another common sign that you have outgrown this man. And that is, you feel like you can't share your world with him. So what I'm talking about here is that, and let me say this, this one is a little bit more like not an automatic thing depending on what you and that man are okay with, all right? What I mean by that is this, and I'm going to use one example. It might be a little extreme for some, but either way, and when I say extreme, just not the most common example, but I think it might make things clearer. So let's just say, for example, you have a woman and she has a world outside of her man that is very classy, very upscale, right? And this man comes from a very different place. He doesn't really vibe with that side of your life, right? He doesn't vibe with those type of people that you hang around and interact with. Not necessarily that there's bad people, the styles just conflict, okay? And so because of that, you can't really bring him into that world because one, he don't even feel like coming around, right? Nor can you bring it to him. There's no intertwining of those two worlds. Now, here's the thing. The reason why I said this is going to very much depend on what you two are okay with. Because the reality is this. There's not anything technically wrong with people having a world outside of their relationship that's their own, okay? The main thing to me is that as long as no one's lying, living double lives, things of that nature, there's nothing wrong with that. That can be had, and it can actually be a healthy, beneficial thing. However, you have individuals that it's going to bother more than others. It's going to disturb them that they can never bring their partner into that world with them, that they can't talk to their partner about what's going on in that world. And that can create a disconnect in the relationship that can cause other problems. Not to mention, let's say in this example, the man, it might be the one who feels, so let's say it's the man who wants to be a part of it, but the woman, let's say she's ashamed to bring her man into that side of her world. She doesn't think he's good enough or that her people will look down on him or look down on her for being with a man of his caliber, right? And so now he starts to feel insecure or inadequate or not loved because you don't include him in that. That you seem to keep a distance between him and those people and what goes on over there and so on and so forth. Which again can create this bigger disconnect, or it can reveal the disconnect that does exist and create more problems. Now, this disconnect, and I have to make sure I always make this clear, doesn't mean the guy's a bad guy. And it doesn't mean the woman's bad because she's not including him in it. It just may again show these two people are not a good fit or have outgrown each other, because it's very possible that it wasn't always like this. And we've gotten to this place now, and we may find ourselves having to pick one of those worlds, right? And for some people, they might be like, you know what? It ain't worth letting my partner feel this way. I don't need to be around that environment. I don't need to have those specific types of friends. I'll let them go for my partner. Others might be like, why? I enjoy this. This speaks to who I am. I'm very happy in these environments and around these people. Why should I have to let them go because my partner is insecure, you know what I'm saying, or doesn't know how to handle themselves in those environments? Whatever side you're on with that, that's your choice. But just understand that, again, you've got to come to some kind of resolution. Whether that's we're going to learn how to be happy keeping those two worlds separate, or we're going to realize that maybe we need to find people that we can share our worlds with, all right? And therefore create more harmony in the relationship. As well as you have to ask yourself, how is this sustainable? Whichever route we take, whether we're separating the worlds or trying to combine them, is this sustainable in the long run in a way that we can avoid unnecessary drama and conflict? All right. So again, I use an example that may not be the most common thing, but this can show in so many various ways. And I feel the need to say this because I think sometimes maybe a woman may, not all, but some, may think that the man doesn't care. And I would probably argue that in most cases, a man probably isn't going to care. As long as he's getting what he needs from his partner, his needs are being met, he's probably like, do what you want. Well, not do what you want to do, but for the most part, yeah, it's no big deal to him. But don't assume that. Have that discussion. Make sure everyone's on the same page, right? Because if you flipped it and it was happening to you, how would that make you feel? There's probably a greater likelihood that it would make you feel some kind of way. So you want to make sure you're not dismissive of this issue or overlooking it or, thinking it's not something that needs to be addressed. No, always make sure there's no underlying issues, tensions, resentment, whatever. We're cool and we can move forward. Or again, we recognize we're just not right for each other. All right. So this next sign that you are outgrown him, it's a sensitive topic for many, but we got to discuss it. And that next sign is that there has been a loss of attraction. However, I want to put in parentheses, it's an unfixable loss. All right, so let's get into it. I know there's a lot of people who will say, well, when it comes to real love, relationships, look, shouldn't it matter? What's on the inside that counts. Yes, what's on the inside matters the most. However, we cannot act like what's on the outside doesn't matter at all. But when I use the word attraction, you got to go beyond just the outside, because especially for you as a woman, for most women, attraction encompasses a lot more than just the physical representation of this individual. All right? Now, everyone has their different levels of what is attracted to them, what is unacceptable, what will cause problems, whatever. And there's a lot of people who they may feel like, and I'm going to say a lot of women who may not leave a man because attraction has been lost. However, they are unable to now show up in that relationship the way that he needs because she is not attracted to him anymore. So simply being willing to stay isn't necessarily healthy or good if you're unable to pour into that man in the ways that he will need. So for example, we all know that for a lot of men, intimacy is going to be important. And if your ability to be intimate with him is heavily dependent on your ability to be attracted to him, and now that attraction is gone, so the intimacy is completely fallen to the wayside, well, you're not doing, who are you doing a favor by staying? And of course, I know some people thinking kids, that's a different discussion. Let's leave that alone for right now. But it's like people think this is honorable thing because they won't leave even though they're not treating their partner the way they need to be treated. But the reason why I put this on this list of outgrown each other is because, again, I believe there are two very powerful fuels to a relationship. 3 depending on your belief system. So the third one, depending on your belief system, is God. That's an important fuel. You need that to sustain a serious, healthy, long-term relationship. But the other 2 things outside of that I believe is consistent across the board is attraction and connection. Okay? When I examine relationships, and I've sat down with tons of people, divorced, broken up, you name it, when you look at what they were lacking, in many cases, whether they can fully articulate it or not, is they didn't have connection or there was a loss of attraction. The problem is society has people feeling like they cannot be honest with others or even with themselves about the impact that the loss of attraction has. Because again, people are saying to others, well, that's so wrong of you. You're shallow. It shouldn't matter. You should love them anyway. And it's like, listen, you can still love someone, but your ability to want to be in a committed, romantic relationship is going to be severely hindered if you're not attracted to them. Now, the reason why I use the word fixable is because, all right, sometimes in relationships, people get too comfortable, they let themselves go, or let's say they have a physical ailment, something happens, they're sick for a while, that can cause things to change, right? But those things are fixable scenarios where, all right, well, once they get back on track, they get healthier, they can get back to doing what they got to do, they can get better care of themselves. So it's like, okay, we might have to go through a season where it's a little rough, but we can get past that as long as there's two willing partners. However, some of you have experienced or are experiencing where sometimes it's about things that man has done to you or what you've experienced with that man, or it could be the character that you are now seeing more clearly about that man that has completely turned you off. And you are no longer attracted to who this man is because he has completely pushed aside who you either thought he was or hoped he would be, okay? And so now, there's nothing to fix. This isn't as simple as, okay, I can start taking better care of myself. This isn't as simple as, let me just change my haircut, right? This isn't as simple as, let me throw on some cologne. No, you are no longer attracted to that man. And if you're no longer attracted to him, this thing has fallen apart. And again, whether you want to call it grown apart or moved apart or whatever, the point is we've reached a point where this is not going to work. And we have to be willing to acknowledge that and accept that for what it is, because as I keep saying, forcing things along isn't going to make things better. It will probably just it will just make things worse. And there will still be a disconnect. So I've seen so many couples who stay together, but the disconnect between them is so obvious to anyone paying attention. Okay? And let me tell you who else it's obvious to if they exist in this dynamic, the kids. So many, and again, this really deserves a different video, so I won't get deep into it, but there's so many people who think they're doing the kids a favor by staying together when they've reached these points where it's like things are pretty much done here, but we're just gonna keep dragging this along, and they don't realize, no, you're actually doing more harm to the kids because you're giving them this skewed, unhealthy perception of relationship, marriage. You are confusing them. They are sensing the disconnect. And whether you realize or not, if you are in a very unhealthy or unhappy relationship, there's a very good chance that negativity is going to pour over into your kids. You may not see it clearly, but I cannot tell you how many adults I speak to where we have to address healing from things. And one of those things is the household they were brought up in. And one of those things typically involve conflict with their parent, not in this maybe direct malicious way, but again, this hurt, people getting cut and bleeding on someone else. Parents getting cut by their own, what they're dealing with their life and trying to keep it together, but bleeding over onto their children and now impacting their children in a negative way. But again, we're going to say that for a completely different video because we got to dissect that a lot. There's a lot more to discuss. Bottom line is this. If the attraction has been lost and it is unfixable, then it's pretty much probably going to be time to move on. All right, so this was going to be a much longer list, but I'm going to have to do a part 2 to this video because there's so much more we got to discuss. But one I had to mention today as another huge sign you have grown apart from this man is that he is now hindering you from your purpose, okay? So I have a quote where I say, there's a lot of people right now not walking in their purpose because they're in a relationship with someone who is holding them back, okay? And the unfortunate reality is that a lot of individuals have gotten into a relationship before fully understanding themselves and before fully getting to a place of understanding where they're supposed to go in life. And I always say, if you don't know where you're headed in life, you don't know who belongs on that path with you, all right? Now, personally, I am a believer that purpose comes from God. And you got to connect with God to really understand the path that you're supposed to be walking. But I want to include the fact that there are individuals, even if it's not a God thing, they reach a point in their life that they realize there's a dream I want to pursue that is it's burning in their heart. It's really weighing on them. And because it's something that wasn't discovered or understood early on, and now they're bringing it to their partner's not on the same page as them. Or their partner is flat out dismissing it, derailing it, working against it. I've seen it all. And the problem is, it's one thing when we want to try something different or explore a new avenue. We're curious about it, and maybe we're in a relationship and the partner's like, nah, I don't think that will work, whatever. That may not bother you as much because it's not like that important to you, though you would have liked to do it. But when you feel like this is a passion, a dream, a purpose, something deeper within you that you can't shake, their unwillingness to go along with this can now create resentment, can create a lot of frustration, a lot of unhappiness. And even if we act like we're putting it to the side and we're just going to move forward, all of that pours over into other aspects of the relationship. All right? For example, you've been with this guy for a long time. You feel like he's dismissing your dreams. Well, you may have a harder time being intimate with this man because you just feel so rejected from him. You feel like he's not valuing your feelings. Okay? And that's going to become an ongoing problem. And this is why, I encourage those, if you are already single, or you're going to be newly single, I'm not wishing that on anybody, I acknowledge the reality of it. You want to make sure that during your single season, you are really trying to figure out who you are and what you're supposed to be doing in life. And again, if you are a believer, what does God want you to be doing in your life? So that way you will choose or accept a partner who is in alignment with that, or you are in alignment with them, so that things can move forward in harmony. Because outside of that, it's going to be a big problem. And I'm going to be real with you. If you are receiving a purpose from God, and I know it can be tricky because, listen, if we're being honest, some people come to conclusions on what God is telling them to do based off of faulty interpretation, okay? Respectfully. Or even listening to someone else telling them this is what they're supposed to do and thinking, well, that must be from God, and that may not always be the case. But there are situations where, no, this is really what God is trying to communicate to you. All I'm going to say is this. When something is coming from God, I could never say choose the person or the relationship over what God's telling you to do. I tell people all the time, there's this great movie called Heat. Long story short, there's this principle in the movie Heat. It has Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, and it says, never be afraid, never get so attached to something that you can't walk away in 15 seconds, okay? And I believe through what I've learned spiritually is that we are never supposed to get so attached to anything or anybody that we are unwilling to walk away from it if God says we got to walk away, all right? So with that said, if God has put a purpose on our life, we have a specific assignment, and this person is getting in the way, they need to be removed. Because better to go with God than to go with them. All right? But I know that's easier said than done. And that's why I think the better job we can do at figuring these things out beforehand, the better we can set ourselves up for success once we are in a relationship. Hey, thank you for watching this video. Be sure to check this one out right here, and I'll see you there. So I know a lot of you feel like men are confusing as hell, okay? I know that is what leads many of you to even be on YouTube, looking at videos like mine, trying to understand how these men